I'm going to go through this running records PowerPoint. The PowerPoint is also available by itself without any recording on Moodle. So let's look at this. A running record is an assessment of text reading. Many of you have done this before, so I know that it's a repeat, and if you don't need to watch the whole video, that's okay. It gives you evidence of how well children understand letters and sounds, how well they use words, and comprehend the message in a text. And it describes what children can do with information from print. So it's an important assessment tool. It helps you to plan instruction, assess text difficulty for children, document progress. So if you've done more than one running record, you can look back and see what kind of progress the student has made. It helps you to group students and observe difficulties that particular students may have. I'm going a little bit quickly because in this format I only have 15 minutes and I want to make sure we get through all of it. So how do I take a running record? You would select a text that is easy and that the child has read before. Sit beside the child with a blank piece of paper and explain that you want the child to read the book and that you will be writing while he reads. No matter whether he does well or poorly, you're going to be writing. So he's not looking at you only to write only if he makes a mistake. You read the title of the book to the child, and then while the child is reading, you'll note miscues and allow the child to figure out problems, but you will tell the child words if he or she is having a difficult time. So you'll use a somewhat standardized recording system. You can look on page 73 in the Clay book, and that gives you some elements of the recording system, and then there's some blank pages that you could copy and use as your running record recording. So as I said, if the child hesitates too long or has difficulty with a word, you can give him the word. So the main thing is you don't want to interfere with the meaning. You also will be making note of behaviors, hesitations, phrasing, and note self-corrections. So one of the things that when you do a formal running record, you should take 3 samples, perhaps from the beginning, middle, and end of the book. If you're working with a very, very low-level reader, sometimes it's hard to get 3 samples because the child is just not able to read that much, and it takes a really long time. So you can video, or what I would recommend perhaps is to audio record. So while you're recording and watching the child, you can note behaviors, and then later you can listen to that recording and get a sense of the words. So when you're having to mark the words, as we'll look at on this page. So on the left is the words that the child is reading, and then on the right is what you're recording, and you're just simply recording a check mark for each word, and then we'll look at some of the ways that you record errors. But on this side of the paper, you can also write some behaviors. What was the child doing as she was reading? Okay, so here we see kitty cat looked out the window. The child read door, so there's one error there. And the child read sleeping instead of asleep. And then the child read and then sleeping. So this is recording everything that the child did, but it's still recorded as one error. And then this is no error because the child first read sleeping, then sleeping, and then the check means the child read the word correctly. So that would be recorded as a self-correct. Here's again a self-correction. Child read was instead of saw, and then what, and then self-corrected. So this person put an SC for self-correct. The one on the slide before just simply put a check there. Okay, so if she omits, she saw red paint too, instead of reading the word some, that is an omission. You just put a line instead of a check mark. And then she saw some cans of, perhaps the child would say of, instead of wherever that insertion goes, you put a little caret and then the word that the child inserted, and then that is also counted as one error. So you're going to record the words that you tell. The text is looked out the window, and the child read liked, and then the teacher told, or the assessor told. So you're going to give them the word. If they read looked, read liked instead of looked, and then said something else and then said licked, then again the T stands for told, so you told them the word, and again that all would count as one error. If there's confusions, she saw some red paint too, and the child read she looked at red paint also. So there's the errors. In some ways we could say, oh, that looks like 3 errors, but we're only going to record it as 1 error because she got kind of the gist of what was going on. But when she said the word look, it made more sense to say at than some. Look at red paint, and then also. Okay? Repetitions, you mark that by drawing an arrow back over. She saw a fat cat. You draw your arrow that she went back here and started again. And then R is repeated. I'm sorry, she saw a fat, so then she repeated and self-corrected. So the next time she read it correctly, just like I did. Okay, recording miscues and directional. You want to show if she's reading left to right or right to left, if she's snaking by going back and reading over, or if she's going from the bottom to the top, which very rarely would occur. Okay, we're going to talk a little bit about scoring. All correct and corrected words, and no error for trials, which are eventually corrected, although you do count the self-correction and count insertions as errors. Omissions are counted as errors, and if she omits a whole sentence, you count each word as an error. But if they omit a whole page, it's not an error, but if you're counting words, make sure you don't count those as words read correctly. If the child reads the same word incorrectly a number of times, and particularly you would, if they've read the word incorrectly and it's changing the meaning, you would have given them the word, then they read that word incorrectly again. You would count that as an additional error for each time they read it, and the only exception is for proper names. So if there's like a proper name Timothy, and the child keeps reading it as Tim or Tom or whatever the child calls it, you would only count it wrong 1 time. Multiple errors, each word is an error. If the phrase is corrected, each word is a self-correction. Broken words are not counted as errors. And inventions invalidate the record, but record this. So if they're inventing words, it's counted as an error. Count confusions as 1 error. So the slide that we looked at would be a confusion, and score the second attempt. So try that again, you could say. If the record can be scored in an alternate way, use the scoring method that produces the fewest errors. So if you were to score a confusion as 3 separate errors, but it gives fewer errors by scoring it as 1 than score it as 1. Okay, so let's look at how it's scored. I'm up to 10 minutes, so I'm going to try to go fast again. Kitty cat and the paint count the total number of words that was read and divide that by the number of errors. So 165 divided by 6 errors equals 28. So the child made 1 error out of every 28 words. Okay, so 159 over 165 gives you a 96%. You multiply it by 100, 96% accuracy rate. And then the self-correction is you take the number of self-corrections, you divide it by the number of errors plus the number of self-corrections, and so that shows that 4 out of 10 times, or 0.4 or 40%, if we were to multiply that by 100, 40% of the time the child self-corrects an error. And then we analyze each error. So we're going to look at meaning, syntax, and graphic similarity. In the Clay book, she talks about MSV, so the M would be meaning, the S would be syntax, and the V would be visual information. So that's the same as looking at the graphics or the spelling. Did the meaning of the text influence the error? Did the child bring a different meaning to the text? So those are both important questions to ask about the meaning. The syntax, did the structure of the sentence influence the response? So that would be the slide that we looked at where it said she saw some and the child said she looked at. So putting that word at in there was influenced by the structure or the syntax that the child had after she used the word look instead of saw. And did the visual information from the print influence any part of the error? Did the child's oral language produce the error with no influence from the print? Was the child clearly getting some phonemic information from the printed letters? And then asking yourself, what makes you suspect this? Look at the self-corrections. Determine if the child used meaning, syntax, and or visual information to make the self-correction. And so you're going to look at that for each self-correction and determine that, and then transfer the results to the observation survey sheet. And here it says page 125. I'm not sure if that's right, but that's in the Clay book. You can look for that page. Okay, what I want you to do to practice is go to this video. You can get to it by opening the PowerPoint on Moodle and clicking on this link. It will take you there, and I've also uploaded the text for Go Away Son. And I want you to practice doing a running record for that. Okay? So, sorry for the confusion. And then I want you to score the record, and we'll talk about those in class next week. Okay, let me know if you have questions about scoring the running records. I will have a place on Moodle for you to score, to ask questions, both for the assignment about emergent literacy as well as for doing running records.